Welcome to this presentation titled Monitoring Your Cloud Infrastructure and Applications with System Center. My name is Kevin Greene. I'm an MVP in the cloud and data center management space. I work for a company called Ergo based in Dublin, Ireland, and I'm the Cloud OS practice lead there. I've authored a couple of books, namely Mastering System Center 2012 Operations Manager and Mastering Windows Server 2012 R2. If you're on Twitter, you can find me at kgreenit, or you can check out my blog, which is kevingreenitblog.blogspot.com. So for today's presentation, I'm going to give you a brief overview of System Center Operations Manager, which if you had a look at Damien Flynn's presentation earlier, you will understand that Operations Manager, or SCOM as it's also known, is a component of the System Center product or System Center suite. So I'm going to give you an overview of some of the key features of SCOM. Then we're going to talk about using SCOM to monitor your Microsoft workloads, things such as Active Directory, Exchange and SQL. I'll then give you some demonstrations around how to leverage SCOM to monitor your private cloud infrastructure and fabric. So integrating with System Center Virtual Machine Manager, having a look at things like your network devices, your SANs, anything that you can kind of monitor and manage within System Center Virtual Machine Manager or Hyper-V, you can easily bring into SCOM. Then we'll move gears a little bit and we'll have a look at how not only can you monitor your on-premise workloads and infrastructure, but you can also use SCOM to monitor workloads that are existent up in public cloud such as Azure. So we'll have a look at Azure monitoring and also probably a little bit of Office 365 monitoring as well. Finally, to close out the presentation, we will give you a brief introduction to a new preview release of a product called Azure Operational Insights. The reason we're including this in this presentation is because Azure Operational Insights is an attached service that can connect back into your on-premise SCOM environments and give you really rich and useful information from the cloud about your environment. So definitely something that that people should be thinking about if you're implementing System Center at this point. So to begin, some of the key features of SCOM 2012 R2, which is the current release. It is a full 360-degree infrastructure monitoring tool. So it can monitor not just your Microsoft applications, it can monitor things like your hypervisors, your VMware, your Hyper-V, Citrix. You can do Windows, of course. You can do Linux and Unix cross-platform monitoring. It's really, really deep. The 360-degree piece comes in because not only can you monitor from a high level, like an IT pro perspective, but you can also monitor things like the code or the code inside an application, like a .NET or a Java application. Really, really useful if, as an IT pro, you want to get a full 360-degree view of your monitoring environment. There's some new and improved Microsoft Azure monitoring. We're going to see some demonstrations on this later on. And also there's some Op Insights integration. Again, a new feature that we're going to show you later on in this presentation. There's a whole story around DevOps, or developer teams and operations teams. Microsoft are integrating the story between developers and operation teams, and making things easier for both teams to have, if you like, a central place that they can troubleshoot and manage their environments and problems that pop up within their applications. So you can see here we can do .NET and Java application performance monitoring, or APM, as part of the SCOM 2012 R2 release. If you've ever used Visual Studio or IntelliTrace and Team Foundation Studio, SCOM can integrate very easily those two components and really bring some rich information from your developer teams into SCOM. And then there's a lot of cross-platform enhancements around how Microsoft monitor Linux and Unix environments, and they've made some key changes there as well. So also the experience. So if you've had previous experience with SCOM, earlier versions, you probably know that some of the dashboard solutions or the visualizations that run off are probably weren't as optimal as they could be. So there's definitely been some enhancements around what you can do inside of the new SCOM console and what kind of views and dashboards you can build out and how you can customize them. Management packs, it's a concept of SCOM. When we deploy SCOM and we want to monitor a specific hardware component or a specific software application, we need to import things called management packs, also known as knowledge modules or referred to as knowledge modules. So there's a lot of new and improved management packs that Microsoft have invested their time in, and to be fair, other third-party vendors as well. So again, it's not just a Microsoft only story. It covers the whole data center environment. And there's some really rich reporting capabilities within SCOM as well. So it leverages SQL reporting services, and you can get some really useful information back to your boss or C-level management around availability and service level agreements and things like that. So very useful. Some good key features there. So now let's go straight into a demo, and I'm going to show you a live environment. Well, it's actually my semi-live SCOM environment, but I'm going to show you how we can use SCOM to monitor some of our key Microsoft workloads. Okay, so this is the SCOM console, and this is the first example I wanted to show you guys, and it is essentially SCOM monitoring my Active Directory topology. So here we can see we've got a top level object or entity, if you like, that is referred to as the Active Directory topology, and we can see this is a health state. So we can see this is clearly it's in a healthy state at the top level here, and then below this we've got two different Active Directory domains that are rolled into SCOM. So again, this is a good point to say SCOM is not specific to any one environment. So if you install it in domain A, you can monitor numerous different domains and forests. There doesn't have to be trusts or anything like that between them. It's really flexible and extensible. So just as an example here, so if we have a look here, top level Active Directory, we can see that I've got a problem here in this particular domain. Often when I present on SCOM to people, I normally say, look, if there's an issue within SCOM and you're using what we refer to here as a diagram view, there's one button. It's a magic button. It's also known as the problem path button up here, this red one. So if we press this problem path button, this will bring us directly down to whereabouts in our diagram the particular problem is. So I'm just going to give myself some real estate here. There we go. So I can see here in my environment, I can see I've got two components of my Active Directory domain here that are giving me some problems. So straight away I could right click here, maybe have a look at an alert view. This is going to show me all of the alerts that have rolled up to that particular domain. We can see there's a number of different domain controllers here in that particular domain. If you've never used SCOM before, this is really useful. So not only will it just give you alerts, so when you get an alert, if the alert is there from, let's say in this case Microsoft, because Microsoft own Active Directory, so if this alert has been generated by the Active Directory Management Pack, then the information that you get back on that alert, if we say double click on this here, the information that you get back is coming directly to you from the Microsoft teams who have originally developed the application, in this case the Active Directory team. So if we have a look here, I mean this particular error message is pretty self-explanatory, but if we didn't know too much information about it, we could have a look at the summary here. Basically gives us a little bit of a heads up on what the issue is. There's more information down here. It's the type of stuff, if you did a copy and a paste, you could go and you could see this then using your favorite search engine. You could go and you get this information from TechNet, and we can get straight away down to the root cause of the problem. Here, for example, it's given us a recommendation that a specific knowledge base or KB article hasn't been installed, and that could be quite or very critical to domain controllers, particularly from a security or a configuration perspective. So just zipping back out there, we can see straight away we've got to the bottom of our problem just by clicking on the problem path button and just seeing what the alerts are. If we needed to get more information, we could drill down further. We could go to the specific servers. So here we can see the different servers in that particular domain. This is like a demo lab domain I have. So we could see the specific servers, and we could see that both of these servers here have a problem. This one here is offline. So again, we could use either right click, open alert view, or we could use the tasks over here. This is not to be underestimated. This is a really, really useful part of Operations Manager. So if I click the alert view here again, it will scope that view just to the specific server that I've clicked on. And we can see here there's some alerts. So let's say, for example, here, this again is quite a self-explanatory alert. I mean, group policy was not successfully applied. I pretty much guarantee that I understand what the alert means straight away just by its description. But let's say you didn't understand. On the right hand side here, you can create some custom tasks. Here we've got one that'll open up your favorite search engine and give you the information that you need from that specific alert, where you can get more information back to give you the tools and the knowledge that you need to make a decision on whether or not that is a valid alert that you want coming into your environment, or whether you need to escalate that to your teams. You can also do things like run remote desktop. So you could run a remote desktop session directly from here. You can RDP onto the box and you can manage it straight away. So within one central console, by default, you're getting all of this centralized management straight out of the box. Another really useful piece of not just monitoring but managing your environment is, again, sticking with the tasks. So if we click on an object here on the right hand side, we can see we've got a number of Windows computer tasks. Now this could be an issue whereby a specific service has stopped on the server. So if we click on computer management, what this will do here is this will open up a computer management snap-in specific to that server. From there we can just go about our business and we can manage that server without even having to log on to it. You can do things like ping. When people get an alert, say a server is unavailable, people typically tend to ping it. We just ping it there straight away. So really, really useful. Very, very handy to have these tasks and these actions which are in context to the objects that you click on within the diagram view here in SCOM. So if we just move on to another Microsoft workload, we talk about email or Exchange. So this would be a pretty common service to have in any environment. So the previous Active Directory one was a pre-built topology root view that you get when you deploy the Active Directory management pack. If we have a look here at this one, this is a pre-built one that we've put in, or this is a configured one, a customized one that we've put in, as opposed to a pre-built one that pertains to the email service in my environment. So I can see here, I've got a number of different components that I've determined form or make up that particular email service. I can see here, these are my Exchange server roles. There's my Exchange server over here, Exchange server 2013. I can see all of the bits and pieces that make up that particular server. Now you might be looking at this thinking, why is this red and the rest of the service model isn't red? Well, SCOM can be quite clever too. It can show you information about availability, which is important. So anything that affects the availability of a service will always roll up red by default, all the way up, right up to its parent object here. But it will also show you things like, missing service packs, or as we saw in the Active Directory model, it will show you things like, missing knowledge base articles or hotfixes. Those type of things are important to know, but not necessarily important enough to turn your whole service model into a critical state. So SCOM is quite clever in that it will contain that particular health state for you, and it will let you determine whether you want that to roll up to the top or not, which is quite clever. You can see here, just to give you some context, you can see all of the different components that we're monitoring just within one service model or one distributed application. So if I just go back out of this one for a sec, zoom back in. So if that's my Exchange server roles, How about network devices? So I said to you it wasn't going to be just monitoring Microsoft workloads. So maybe as part of my email service, if my network device goes down, that's going to affect my email service too, right? So if I click here, I can manage using SNMP monitoring. I can manage my network environment. So if I click on over here, the network node dashboard, so clicking on the network node dashboard, this is going to open up rather specific network management or network monitoring component of SCOM. And this again is really useful. This piece of monitoring of your infrastructure, of your network monitoring, this was introduced firstly in SCOM 2012, and it's had some enhancements along the way up to 2012 or 2. So we can see here, there's the network device. These are valid links between that network device and other network devices. So automatically it is gone and it's done or carried out essentially an SNMP walk, which goes off and it finds any other connected devices that it knows about within its vicinity. I can see things like availability for that particular object or network device. I can get all my SNMP information. I can see things like processor usage, even the interfaces and the traffic on that particular network device. So again, from a specific diagram view, what we've done is we've gone and we've pivoted out of that diagram view into a more scoped view for the specific component that we're monitoring within our data center, in this case a network device. And this, as I say, is completely customizable. We can have a look here. This represents just the directory services component for Active Directory. Loads of different components, and these service models can be built and configured as each environment requires. So really useful technology with service management, which essentially is what we're talking about. It's IT service management. If you can see your whole email service as one entity, well then for your senior management people, you can then map out a service level agreement or an SLA, and you can target that SLA against your specific service. So what does that mean? Essentially what it means is you can go back to your boss or your boss's boss or even to your customers, and you could say, okay, we have guaranteed you that the service will be available 99.5% of the time. And you can then give people access to a view such as this, or you can print out reports or email or schedule reports that will basically determine here's the service availability, and it's in this case up 100% in the last the last 24 hours, but you can specify whatever period of time that you wish. So that's really useful. One last Microsoft workload feature that I want to show is based around SQL. So if we have a look at SQL here, this is the SQL Server Management Pack, and if we drop down, this is relatively new and improved. This is a new dashboard. So if you work in an environment where you have a lot of SQL guys or SQL girls who essentially do only SQL management, they should hopefully love this type of view of this dashboard. So you can basically see all of your different database engines, all of your monitoring. I'll just give us a bit more screen so we can see this here. Details, monitoring, these can be configured real time. Really useful. And I suppose the reason I wanted to just show Microsoft workload monitoring is who better to monitor your Microsoft workloads than Microsoft themselves, and I think it's definitely a good way to give you an introduction into the powers and the capabilities of SCOM and what it can do and what it can bring you back, particularly around the Microsoft stack. But of course, that's not all it can do. So let's get back and we'll talk about next up, private cloud monitoring. So with SCOM, we can monitor your entire data center fabric using various management packs such as the Virtual Machine Manager or VMM management pack, network monitoring as we saw in the previous demo, and any component that makes up or the underlying service or the underlying fabric in your environment, we can leverage and we can bring into SCOM to light it up as a monitored component or a monitored piece of hardware very easily. So If we go with the whole integration story between SCOM and SCVMM, then what you get out of the box just by simply importing the management pack and just configuring some agents, you get a very quick at a glance view of the different cloud health models or different health of your clouds, and of course of the underlying fabric and the virtual machines that are running on those clouds. When you have that, you get your easy root cause analysis, because then you can pivot to existing dashboards like the network monitoring dashboard, or you can move on to, your HP, Dell, IBM, whatever your hardware vendor is. You can move into managing the hardware components of those pieces of fabric as well. So definitely, if you have Virtual Machine Manager and you have a SCOM in your environment, make sure that you are using the management pack that I'm about to show you to really get the value out of it. So straight back into another demo in the same environment. Okay, so if we have a look here, it's the Virtual Machine Manager management pack. Microsoft released this, I think, about a year and a half ago, this particular version of it, and it is really good in comparison to its predecessor. So here's your at a glance view. So I'm connecting to a Virtual Machine Manager server in my lab environment essentially, and on that particular VMM server I've created a number of private cloud objects, and in those objects we can see things like VM counts, CPU quota, max storage. Again, all of this information will be pre-configured in VMM or Virtual Machine Manager. But again, at a glance, you can get information down here. You can see it straight away. You can pivot from there into different views. Very useful. So if we have a look here, maybe if you want to just manage individual VMM hosts, or if you want to get the health state of individual hosts, you don't necessarily want to go down the whole cloud route. So in here is your VMM host dashboard. So I can see I've got a node selected here. I'll just give us some more screen. I have a node selected here. I can see total memory, total VMs, CPUs, core processors, things like that. So, I mean, SCOM is not an asset management tool or an inventory tool, but for certain things, quick overview or at a glance view of, consumption on your clusters or consumption on your private clouds, you can use SCOM straight away just to get that information. Down here we have a heat map of all of the virtual machines that are sitting on this specific host here. If I hover my mouse over it, I get the name of each of these servers, which is pretty useful. And we've got things like performance widgets. Widgets are components built into the new dashboard framework. Performance here, host network, host disk, all of the things that you'd expect and you'd want from a good fabric management monitoring tool inside your data center. From here, if I go back to a more familiar diagram view, so from here I can see a diagram view of my System Center Virtual Machine Manager environment. So here we go. So in here, you can see I've got my Virtual Machine Manager group. I've got my VMM infrastructure, which essentially is my fabric. I can use my one-click button if I need to bring me right down to where the problem is. I can see in this case here, I've just got an issue with some agent watchers, which are essentially the agents. This particular guy here. Or I could again right click, open alert view. This tells me straight away, so I don't need to keep clicking through things again. Diagram view is more for demonstration purposes here at this case, but this alert would, if we have scheduled email alerting, somebody would receive this email alert straight away if that server went offline, and we'd know about it. But again, from a fabric perspective and from an overall kind of infrastructure perspective, this type of information is really useful, particularly even just from a VMM context. If the VMM agent is not running but everything else is running, it still will affect how that environment is managed. So if we just show you what it is exactly we can see here, just from a diagram view perspective. And this is a pre-built view that comes with the Virtual Machine Manager Management Pack. I'll just zoom back out here a little bit so we can see. So I can see this is the Virtual Machine Manager host. These are all the VMM, or the virtual machines rather, that sit below that host. And these are my clouds. So I can see my clouds, my database, all the components that sit within each of those clouds. I've got one over here. This guy here. You can see some counts, virtual machine counts, CPU counts. Again, similar information to what we had in the Cloud Health dashboard, but presented in a nice, easy on the eye diagram view here. So definitely something to think about if you're deploying System Center Operations Manager and you've also deployed Virtual Machine Manager. Make sure that you have the VMM Management Pack, System Center Virtual Machine Management Pack, installed into SCOM. I mean, these are all free. If you've got the license for System Center products, these management packs are all free. There's very few management packs that you or your company will need to purchase, and none of them are Microsoft ones. All the Microsoft ones are free, so definitely worthwhile getting something like that in. Okay, back to our presentation. So now that we've had a look at how to monitor our on-premise clouds or our private clouds, it's a good opportunity to look at how we can monitor our public clouds using on-premise System Center Operations Manager. So first up, we showed the email or the Exchange management pack and monitoring solution earlier. So it's quite common these days that a lot of people have either move their email environments fully into the cloud, namely into something like Office 365, or are running hybrid connections. So they've got some on-premise emails with Exchange Server and some off-premise with Office 365. So it's a natural progression for Microsoft to ensure that they've got a monitoring solution or a management pack rather for SCOM that can monitor Office 365. And the Office 365 management pack basically gives an overview of the connection health for all of the configured subscriptions that you configure the SCOM or the management pack to monitor. So it's there's a couple of things that you would need to do around configuring that particular management pack. I'll go through that in a demo now in a minute. But once you've got it configured, it's pretty straightforward, and then it will bring in all of the connection health and the service health for those particular subscriptions pretty quickly. You can also then see the list of active incidents, resolved incidents, and things like informational messages for any given subscription, which can be useful. Like, I mean, the environment that you're running Office 365 in, the fabric and the infrastructure is managed by Microsoft, so you're not going to need to worry about that. Microsoft are going to worry about that, but you would still need to know if there are any global incidents or global problems with Office 365, and essentially this management pack will give you that information right into your centralized monitoring console for SCOM. You can also see all of the Office 365 services and features and the number of currently active incidents for each service or feature. So if there is a global issue, basically you'll see that pretty quickly within this management pack. Before we go into the demo for Office 365, we'll also talk about here the management pack for Windows Azure, or Microsoft Azure actually. So basically, the Azure Management Pack monitors Microsoft's public cloud environment. So when this management pack was released originally a few years ago, it was really complex to set up and didn't give you a lot of information back in comparison to what we have now. The version that I'm going to demonstrate to you is really deep and gives a lot of information back. There's pretty much nearly every component of Azure it can monitor. So it's really useful. So you can look at things like your cloud services, the virtual machines, including their availability if you're using like the IaaS component of Azure, your storage accounts, your certificate health. So I mean, certificates are a big thing in Azure. You got to make sure that your certs are not expired. If they are, you got to have a heads up as to how quickly or when they're going to expire, or when they have expired, so you can then quickly go and update them. To ensure your users or your customers don't lose any service availability. And then there's some nice new dashboards, views and templates inside this particular management pack as well. So it's definitely a useful addition to the SCOM monitoring story. So back into our demo environment again, and we'll have a look at Office 365 first, and then we'll have a look at the Azure Management Pack. Okay, so Office 365, again, it's pretty simplistic because pretty much just about all of Office 365 is monitored by or is managed by Microsoft themselves. But we can see here, if we have a look at the Office 365 monitoring dashboard, I've just got one subscription here, but you could have a large number of them in this list here without any issue. So if I click on this specific subscription here, I can see my Microsoft service status, so all of the different components of Office 365 and any active incidents. So if I zip through here, there are currently no active global incidents within Office 365, which is good. When I was testing this the other day for this presentation, we had several active incidents, and they showed up here in the active incidents pane, which was quite useful. Resolved incidents. So if we say go in here and double click on one of these, we can see Microsoft have resolved an incident with this particular reference, service restored for Exchange Online, and it happened 2 days ago, and there's a repeat count, and there's a little bit of knowledge around basically how that message or how that alert come into the console. But this can be quite useful if you are managing a hybrid environment for Office 365 and Exchange, or even if it's a complete Office 365 environment, and you have end users complaining, over the weekend, for example, mail went down, and how did you not know about it? Maybe you don't know about it unless you've got this management pack into your SCOM environment that tells you about it, or unless you get a phone call from that user and you then go onto the Office 365 services page or health services page and have a look and see, is there anything actually down? So in here you can use that information either real time to feed back to your end users, or even from a historical perspective, if you're troubleshooting why someone's mail or someone's SharePoint or something was down at any given period of time, you can get that information from the management pack here just in one central location, which is quite useful. And pretty much there's some different issues there, so all with different tickets, incident tickets here. And you've got your standard message center here. So this is where, if we just have a look at some of the description of some of these alerts, this is where Microsoft are giving people a heads up on some changes that they're making and what's new, kind of just an informational kind of area that you can go, or you can maybe provide this dashboard to your users or your employees or the people you work with to give them a better idea of how the environment is running, and making sure that everybody understands that if mail goes down, if it is an issue with Office 365 environment and not with the on-premise connectivity to Office 365, at least then people will understand, or they have, if you like, the means to understand where the issue is, rather than just blaming internal IT all the time, which can often be the case. So there's not much else to the management pack. We can see within an alert view there, we can see pretty much all of the same incidents that we saw on the previous screen. But we can sort them here, by date and age and stuff like that. So maybe useful, or again, this could be something that you might just want to give access to a select number of staff or people that work on your team if they need to troubleshoot some historical issues on mail access issues or Office 365 issues. So that can be quite useful too. So shifting gears, we're going to have a look at the Azure Management Pack. So we can see here, still named Windows Azure, the management pack is. So in here we can have a look at, let's see, the topology dashboard. So I've got 2 subscriptions configured for monitoring here, but again, you can add any number of subscriptions in here once you've got the relevant permissions and the relevant prerequisites in place, if you like, to ensure that you can monitor those subscriptions. So we can see here I've got my Ergo one, and I've got my my demo lab one as well. Both of them are actually demos, but if we click on this one here, the Ergo one, we can see that we have an issue here with this component. Okay, so if I click on this component, I'm just going to give me my actions pane back here for a sec. So clicking on this component here, I can do my alert view. I can see what the problem is. Straight away it tells me the role is not healthy. Oh, cloud service certificates will expire soon. That's great. This is exactly what we need. We need to know the cert is about to expire so we can go off and we can update the cert. Now, that's fine because it's a demo environment. We don't worry about it, but again, that's really useful information. And this is feeding directly in from Azure. So if that certificate gets updated, this alert will close itself. It's what we refer to as a monitor. So it's a stateful monitor that looks at the health state of a specific object, and in this case the certificate time, or sorry, the certificate thumbnail, and when that's about to expire. So if that gets updated, then this monitor checks that it's updated and it will automatically close that particular alert. So that's quite useful. If I just close back out of that view for a sec, I can see some dependency diagrams here, or some dependency lines here. So I didn't create these. Once I import the Azure Management Pack, it automatically identifies all of the different components of an Azure service. If I had some additional storage or some SQL here, which I don't, it's just a small subscription, a demo subscription. But if I had quite a complex subscription of components up in Azure, it would automatically map them all out for me. Nice and handy. So really useful there in terms of giving me a view of the different components. We can see here in my other subscription, I've got 3 virtual machines, again all demos. Because these are completely standalone, they have no dependencies, then there's not going to be any state view on these as such. If I wanted to get a state view from these, there's a little bit more complexity around how I need to configure them, and probably I'd be best off installing a SCOM agent directly inside each of those VMs. But at the moment I don't care about doing that because they're literally only demo machines. Within this topology view, I can flip between production and staging very easily. So if I have a staging environment or a production environment, I can flip in between that pretty easy. Over on the left here, so we look at, these are all what are determined as or defined rather as views, right? So each of these views here, if you see them, if you're getting familiar with the SCOM console, each of these views represent something different, or a different way, if you like, of representing data that SCOM has discovered and that SCOM monitors. So this one here that looks like a kind of a traffic light view, if I just zoom in, this one that looks like a traffic light view is known as a state view. The one above it there that I have highlighted, the topology dashboard one, that's a dashboard view. So if I click on one of these state views here, I can have a look at, say, the discovered storage. So I can see all of the properties of the Azure Cloud Storage components that I have within my different subscriptions. I can see a state view of the virtual machines that essentially I saw in that topology dashboard view as well. Here I can see this particular VM is in a critical state. It's because I have that VM turned off. Over here on the right, I can reboot that virtual machine, or I could re-image it if I configure that task properly. So you can see these tasks on the right are really important. If you have deployed SCOM in your environment, really important that you pay attention to the tasks and that you take advantage of them, because they would save you time and they would save you money in the long run, particularly if you're troubleshooting problems in your environment. So these tasks are what we refer to as contextual. So each object that you click on within a view in SCOM, these tasks will change. As you can see, we don't have any reference now to ping or remote desktop as we did earlier on in one of the other views. So these are specific to the Azure role instance here. So definitely something that is useful in terms of the Azure Management Pack. There's loads of other stuff in here around that management pack as well. You can see the state of your different clouds. So depending on the different cloud services that you have configured, you can then see performance metrics. So you could, configure different performance metrics or performance monitoring counters for your environment. I don't have it configured in my demo here, But really, really useful stuff if you've got a public cloud environment that you need to monitor with SCOM. And again, it's not just Microsoft monitoring. I'm demonstrating this because it's a Microsoft presentation, but if you have Amazon Web Services, Amazon have a management pack that you can plug into SCOM, so you can monitor and manage your AWS instances inside of SCOM as well. So again, it's not just Microsoft related. Really, really useful to know that and understand that as well. So let's get back to the demo or back to the slide deck. So now, after we've got the public monitoring, an understanding of it, should I say, good opportunity to introduce the new Microsoft Azure Operational Insights preview. It's really, really cool off-premise or cloud-based monitoring, but in a different way to how SCOM currently does it. So I suppose it's easier for me to move on and just give you a quick slide on explaining what Operational Insights is, and then we have a demo, and I'll show you how it's configured inside the on-premise SCOM up into the cloud. So this product used to be known also as System Center Advisor. So if you've heard of the Microsoft marketing talking about System Center Advisor in the past, it's now rebranded to Microsoft Azure Operational Insights. So Up Insights. So essentially, what it does is takes data from your machine. So it basically uses the same agent, the SCOM agent, which is called the Microsoft Monitoring Agent. And it takes data from, or piggybacks onto that agent and takes data from the servers or computers that you're monitoring and sends it up into the cloud. When it's up in the cloud, Microsoft have brought the resources together to give best practice recommendations and insights, if you like, as to how your environment is configured. First and foremost, but that's how it initially started out from a System Center Advisor perspective, but they've now moved very quickly to give you things like syslogging and high level auditing and security and endpoint monitoring or recommendations rather. Really, really cool stuff. So in here we can see, if we look at how this is how this diagram kind of explains it. So you can see your Windows and your Linux servers, they have data and they forward it through SCOM. Then you've got the different components here that Azure Operational Insights can monitor. So things like event logs, IIS logs, security, perf counters, syslogs, stuff like that. And then takes all of that information, puts it over to the Azure Op Insights cloud service. Gives you pretty close to real time. Search, there's ready-made intelligence there, there's really nice dashboards, and it's fully scalable, and that's the key. If you were to do, or if Microsoft were to do this type of stuff on premise, with the performance that you would need to get all of this information as close to real time as possible would nearly make it uneconomical to run this on premise. Whereas when Microsoft run it up in Azure, they've got all of the power of Azure VMs and the Azure Diagnostics and the search and analytics machinery components and services that plug into Op Insights and give a really, really slick and super fast service. So it's definitely really, really cool. So it uses a thing called intelligence packs. So similar to the way SCOM has management packs, intelligence packs are, if you like, pre-built offerings up in Op Insights that you can literally add or remove to your Op Insights service. Gives you things like search, visualizations, multiple data sources, which is important. It doesn't necessarily have to be just from one domain, so you can take data in from a number of different environments using SCOM or using standalone agents as well. So that's really handy. If you have integrated SCOM with Virtual Machine Manager, as is the case with the demos that I've just walked through today, then you also have the ability to do some capacity planning or capacity forecasting. And you can also look at your system updates and your malware and change tracking, things like that. So really, really cool. So let me just drop into the demo here for Azure Op Insights. Let's go back here. So here we go. So it's preview.opinsights.azure.com if you want to play around with this. It's pretty cool. So this is the overview screen. So in here we've got our dashboard, and we've got all of our usage. We can see all of the different intelligence packs that we have enabled for our environment. So I suppose I'll show you, if I go over here, I can show you the concept of intelligence packs. So this is all up in the cloud. So if I want to add intelligence packs, each of these here, any of them that you see, I've added every one of them, so they're owned. But AD assessment, for example, give you information. I could add it if I hadn't already, or I can remove it from my subscription. It gives you a nice bit of information here around what the intelligence pack does, some additional screenshots, really, really useful. Malware assessment, that can be quite useful too, and capacity planning. There's loads of really cool ones in there. So if I go back to my main view, or my main assessment or dashboard view, I can see all of these different pieces slotted together into one central view. Now if we have a look here at alert management. So in alert management, you can see, if I just zoom in here, you can see all active alerts, Office 365 incidents, 16 of them. That rings a bell, right? Because we had a look at our on-premise SCOM environment, we could see that we had a number of incidents in there from Office 365. This is feeding the information back from our agents in SCOM. So we can see here 15 sources with 38 active alerts. Here's my servers. So if I click onto this, I can see all the different server names, all the results, alert names, and this is where you can really, really dig deep. You can see history here, search history. I could pick a specific component and I could drill in, and you can see up here the search string changes as I need to, and it would then go and it would give me the information back. There's server performance exception, basically giving me more information from SCOM. This information here is all coming back from SCOM. So how does it do it? Just on that, just how does it throw the information back up? So if we just go back to our SCOM console for a sec, okay? So clearly I'm monitoring those servers with the normal SCOM agent. But with SCOM 2012 R2 and higher, the new version, the technical preview of System Center vNext that is publicly available, that also has this connector as part of it out of the box. So we can see here the operational insights connection. I have an option here. I can add a computer or a group. I can configure my Op Insights subscription, so that I've obviously already connected it. I can see here which components or which servers are actually being managed by Op Insights. So just because I have a SCOM agent on a server doesn't mean that it will automatically go up into Op Insights. I get to choose which ones I want. So you may want to use this if you were onboarding some new fabric into your environment. So if you were spinning up a new cluster or a new cluster node, maybe you want to target temporarily the Op Insights environment to give you information back around best practice recommendations, malware assessment, configurations, things like that. So if I specify in here, add a computer or group, basically this gives me a list that I can search from of all the monitored agents that are currently being monitored normally by SCOM, and then I can add them in here as selected objects. When I do, if I give it a little bit of time, it just lights up in the Op Insights, in this case the alert intelligence pack. But if it was, say, a SQL server that I've added in, I get all of this information that's based around SQL. Some of which you get as part of the SQL management pack in SCOM, and others you won't. Active Directory assessment. So again, maybe your environment, you're spinning up a new Active Directory domain controller, or even a new domain itself. Target Op Insights at it. Have a look. Make sure that it's configured properly, or make sure that your team or the consultant company that have deployed it have deployed it as per best practice recommendations. Another really useful one, as I mentioned earlier, if you have your environment connected to or configured with System Center Virtual Machine Manager, you then get the capacity planning view as part of the intelligence pack, the capacity planning intelligence pack. So here I can see 60 plus days till I max out my resources. It's given me a bit of a projection here. Available cores, available memory, space used. Really useful information here around capacity planning of my on-premise fabric, even though I'm managing this from Azure, so essentially up in the cloud. Here's each of my nodes. I can export this information to Excel. It's really, really useful. So if we go back to SCOM for a sec, just to keep the story, the connectivity story. So if we go back to SCOM, we'll see, System Center Advisor, this management pack the name needs to be updated. It's still in preview Op Insights, but when this RTMs, this will change. So if we have a look here in Active Alerts, I can see all of the alerts that I currently can see in Op Insights, and these would be tagged to the servers that we viewed earlier. So in this case here, missing operating system update. If I look at my contextual tasks over here on the right, I can manage my alert rules. So I can then determine, it opens up the Op Insights website. I can determine whether I want that rule alerted on or ignored, how it's configured, enable it, don't enable it, ignore. Really, really cool. And, really nice integration story back, taking the off-premise and the on-premise back to one central console and one central pane, giving you a full 360 view. If you're using this, you really are getting a full 360 view of the overall environment. And just to close off, I mentioned the Office 365. We're talking about connecting Op Insights. Office 365 subscriptions are configured in here as well. So you're in the administration pane of Operations Manager or of SCOM. You can add, edit, or remove your Office 365 subscriptions as you wish. So just go back to the deck there. So that's it really for me. I hope people have found this presentation useful. There's some further information there. There's my blog again, kevingreenitblog.blogspot.com. My Twitter account, @kgreenit. When this goes live on March 20th, we will have a live Q&A Twitter. So any questions you have, just tweet them to me or tweet them with the hashtag UK MVP Cloud, and we'd be happy to answer them for you. You can find out more about the MVP community at this URL here, or you can sign up for a free trial for Microsoft Azure at this URL here. So, next steps, if you're interested in this stuff, or if you haven't yet deployed System Center, or if you haven't yet moved into Cloud OS story, or if you want to experiment more, Microsoft have transformed the data center environment workshops, or TDI workshops, as part of their customer immersion experience, and definitely something worthwhile. You can register for these workshops, and Microsoft will organize to bring yourself or your managers or senior managers, any decision makers that you need in to get hands-on with this and to actually play with an environment that doesn't necessarily have to be developed and configured on premise for yourselves. So it can be a fully working demo environment that you can work away on and get a good test drive on this. So that's it. Thank you very much, and you can contact me, as I say, on Twitter, and hope you enjoyed the session and hope you enjoy the rest of them. Thanks.